Hi, it's Jo from Minerva. Today we're going to look at some fitting essentials and some tips for fitting. We're making a series of fitting videos, so if you need a specific fit type for your body shape, you can check that out too. It can be frustrating when you're choosing a dress size to cut from a pattern because you think that different pattern companies use different measurements, and you would be right. So the major big four pattern companies, the tissue paper ones like McCall's or Simplicity, they use an American standard sizing that was set in 1972. So they've made a standard and they make their patterns to that, and then that's a template for you to adjust your body shape to that standard size. A pattern from before 1972, so this is the one that I'm wearing today, this will have smaller standard sizing that happened pre-1972. This pattern's from 1971, and I had to make a lot of alterations on the bust and the front so that I didn't have a really tight front. If you like sewing with indie patterns, then you might find that they have different sizes in different pattern houses. So this is the Carly shirt dress, and this will have a different size for a particular bust measurement. If we compare them, the bust size on McCall's for a size 14, 39.5 inches. The bust size for a size 14 on the Carly shirt dress is 40, so 39.5, 40. And the bust size on the petite vintage pattern is 36. So you've got 36, 39.5 and 40. So you will always need to do some sort of fitting when you're making a garment. It can be difficult to know which size to cut when you get your pattern, because patterns come from all different parts of the world, and different standardized sizing is used in different places. So the first point for you to start at is your bust size, and not your full bust size, because if you use your full bust size, then if it's large, then all of the rest of the parts of your pattern will be large and you'll have to make lots and lots of alterations. Whereas if you measure your high bust with a tape measure, I'm going to use inches, you'll be getting more fitting information about your back, about your thickness, about your width between shoulder to shoulder, and then you will get an item that fits your neck and your shoulders better, and then you can make an adjustment for your bust separately. If you choose bust first, then you might have to do lots of alterations to accommodate one thing, whereas if you measure your high bust, you will get more things accurate before you start. This range in pattern sizing might seem unfair, but because you can't try on these garments in the shop like you can a ready to wear, then they have to standardize in some way. That means that if you are a size 14, you've got a starting point, because if you picked up a size 14 in a shop and tried it on and it didn't fit, you put it down and pick up another one and try that on. But because the pattern can only fit a standard size 14, it's up to you then to make the fitting. So you use a pattern like you just use a basic template. Don't forget that pattern sizing doesn't account for age either. So when standardized sizing is used in patterns, it will be used on a 20 to 25-year-old body shape, whereas if you're changing into your 40s and 50s, you might get a moving waistline, you might get a moving bust or derriere, or your shoulders, or a round shoulder if you've been working on a computer for a long time. So lots of changes will need to be made because of our lifestyle and our age and our body shape. You will need to use the information on the packet, description of the garment, to find out how much ease is in a pattern. I've talked about ease before, but if a pattern is close fitting, you will only really be having between 1 and 2 inches of ease. If it's semi-fitted, then you might be having a little bit more ease under the arms and through the waist. And especially now, if you look at some patterns, modern day patterns, there's loads of ease in them. They're really floaty, like McCall's 7969. There's lots of ease in there. So once you've taken your own measurement, your high bust measurement, then you might need to look at the finished garment measurements, because you might find that your body shape will fit inside the finished garment measurements with plenty of ease. Ease is really personal preference, so some people like more ease in their clothes, some people like a more fitted style, so you need to also account for that against the standardized size. You can add ease, you can take ease away, and it will change depending on the different styles of clothes. If you have a really boxy fit sweatshirt, then you might not need to worry so much about the waist and hips, but you will need a good fit on the shoulders, so that's why that high bust measurement is important. It can be tempting when we're cutting out and we don't want something to be too small to just add a little bit all around the pattern pieces, but if we do that, then we're changing seam lines, we're changing how one piece fits into another piece. So if we want to do some fitting essentials, we need to know where we can cut into the pattern and where we can add width or take width or length away. I'm going to show you how to do that on the cutting table with a few simple pieces. You can grade between sizes, and that sometimes might be enough to get the better fit. So if you needed a 12 around your high bust here, and then you needed to grade out to a size 14, you could use the multi-sized lines on your pattern. That would work for those lengthening and shortening and width alterations that are quite simple, but sometimes you might need something a little bit more tricky, and that's what our other videos are for. Let me show you the grading between sizes. Before you do any alterations to a flat pattern piece, it's a good idea to iron it. Iron it on the reverse. If you iron it on this side, you might get some of the ink come off onto your sole plate of your iron. So iron it nice and flat. Let's see how to grade the seam. This is a skirt piece from the Megan Nielsen Brumby skirt, and I want to keep the lovely full hem that you get from the gather, but I would like to make the waist a little bit smaller as it comes in. So I'd like to keep that lovely waist. I want to keep that waist, and I'm going to grade out so that I get a really nice full skirt. So I want to keep the size 12, but I'd like a fuller skirt, so I can take my cut line now out, but I haven't changed the waist, which I know fits. I'm just taking out for a fuller skirt. You can do the opposite, so you can keep your skirt shape, so this line here, and then I can grade it out to give myself a wider waist. Grading between sizes is a really simple way to make simple alterations around your waist and bust. To find out some more specific sizing, you can do a tissue fit, which is where you pin your tissue pieces together using the seam allowance, and you try the tissue piece on. Some people make a toile in this way, but actually you can do it just with the tissue. You just need small dressmaking pins, not really big glass head ones. If you use the big glass head ones, you might find you sort of rip your paper piece. But you pin your pattern together using the seam allowances, and then try your pattern on and have a look where you would like to change anything. It's best to do it just with a close fitting top on, like a vest or leggings or a leotard or something that's very close fitting. And you need your pattern pieces to be flat, otherwise it's not a true representation of the pattern. With this you can check shoulder length, you can check bust dart placement, you can check a waist fitting, You can check whether you're getting any gaping around the arm, and then you can come back, unpin it and come back to your pattern and make any alterations. So this is called tissue paper fitting. Tissue fitting is really useful for finding how far away from the pattern you are generally. So you need to look at all the vertical lines first. So you need to see if your centre line is matching the centre line of your body. And you need to see if your shoulder seam is going straight or if it's pulling to the front or the back. I am getting some pulling and I'm going to show you where that is. I'm getting it here, look, in the back armhole isn't long enough, so I'm going to make an adjustment to that armhole. And you can make other things as well, so you could put the pleats in, the pins, and you can work out your waist fitting. So a tissue fitting works the same as a toile fitting, but without the expense of using another fabric. There you can see how much I've crushed down that armhole there. On a muslin, you can move around a little bit more. So from a tissue fitting, you're sort of looking for that sort of basic fit, but with a muslin fitting, you can move around a little bit and really see how much ease you're getting. So this muslin was to find out if that empire line went below my bust, whether I needed to make a bust adjustment. It's got princess seams, so I could see whether I needed to pinch out here. I was checking where the waistline finished. I was checking for a sloping shoulder. And I was also checking for, I've had to pin it myself, I'm sorry, so it's not great. I was also checking for a gaping neck here. And the way you can avoid that is by putting a chain necklace on and then using where your chain lands as a measurement for where your neck is, whether your head sits forward or back, or whether you're square shouldered or sloping shouldered. So a muslin might be the way for you to move forward, especially if you're using a pretty special fabric. So this was for a lace dress that I cut, and I didn't want to cut the lace, so I made a toile or a muslin. How else can we change patterns? Well, we can do that little grade between sizes, which sometimes helps, but if we want to just make sure that where we're adding fullness or taking away fullness is specific to us, we can be a little bit more skillful. So here's the front piece of the jumpsuit that I used before. There is a lengthen and shorten line here, and I often need to use that. I would measure from my arm to my waist and find out if I need to lengthen or shorten. It's useful, but only if you know where your waist lands. If you just shorten it, you might be taking some out of the bust area that you need. You might be taking some too low out of the rib cage area that you need. So find where your waistline is and find where you need to shorten it. One of the best things that you can find out about yourself is where your bust apex is. And a bust apex is the widest part of your bust. And it might be different than when you were younger. So it might be lower down, it might be higher up. You might have one side different to the other, but find out where it is by holding up the pattern piece to your body, measuring from your center line out to find out how far apart your bust is, and then you can measure from the shoulder down to find this. And this pattern hasn't got darts in it, but that will really help you to place your darts. It will help you to think whether you're getting a big neck here. It'll help to see if it's pulling under your arm. So the bust apex is a really good midpoint to find too. I've traced that off, and I am going to lengthen this jumpsuit by cutting through the length and shorten line. Just use some brown paper to show you. It's better if you use a tissue that you can fit around your body. Paper like this is too crunchy then to put it up against you as a tissue fitting, so it's best to use a Swedish paper or a tissue paper, and then this paper, thicker paper, is good if you want to make a toile, but it's not great if you want to fit it up against your body. So I'm going to add 2 centimetres in length. Keep my pieces lined up, tape it down. And just changing this lengthen and shorten line will make quite a difference, not just to your waist fitting, but it will change things up here, because it will mean if your body's long, if your bodice is long enough, then it's not pushing down on your bust. If your body's long enough, it's not pulling at your arms. If your body's short enough, the bust apex is in the right place. If your body's short enough, the waist lands on the waist. If it's short enough, you've not got like pooling underneath your bra line. So just one little alteration, it might open a can of worms, but it's a good way to start your fitting journey. And then you can cut out your bodice. Of course, if you've added some length to the front, you will also need to add some length to the back, otherwise my side seams won't match up. So be aware that whatever alteration you make will affect something else. So this greyed out that I made on the back to give me just that extra 2 inches on the waist, that will mean that the trouser piece that I cut to attach to the bottom will need to have that little greyed out on as well. Another little thing to look out for is when I tried this on as a tissue fitting, I creased all of the fabric there in the back of my arm side, and it's popular for wherever your crease lines are to sort of be pointing at the problem, but I need more of that armhole to be scooped out. And this hasn't got sleeves, so I can go ahead, and these arrows are pointing here, look, like do something about this here. So I'm going to take that armhole down and out a little bit. I will need to change the facing that goes on there then. The good thing about tissue fitting is once you've made your alterations, you can pin it back together again, and that's when you can see if all of your seams match up. So because I've taken some out of that armhole, I've forgotten to take some out of the other side so that the side seams match up. So this second bit of fitting, just to check all your alterations, means you can double check you don't cut your fabric then realise that one piece is a little bit too short, like I have there. When you've made your alterations, you can then try it on again and check you've got your centre line, that's important. My waistline is now landing on my waist. I've got much more room in the arm, it's not pulling. There we are, look, less of those wrinkles there. Got more room to go backwards and forwards. I have noticed that now I can make a shoulder adjustment if I want to. That's hanging right off my shoulder, and it's a sleeveless jumpsuit. I changed the armhole and pattern fitted again. And I was using these wrinkles as a little indicator for me, but I was still getting them. So I've taken some out of there, so it's stopped pulling there, but I've still got some there. And when I actually marked, that is where my shoulder was. So this was standing all 2 centimetres past my top of my shoulder bone. So I'm going to do some more alterations on that shoulder. I'll show you some more shoulder alterations in a different video. I hope that little tour of fitting has whet your appetite to find out some more specific fitting tutorials for your body shape. So let's look at the top tips from today. So patterns use a standard sizing, they have to, because they need to sell patterns to all different shaped people, and it's up to us to get the fit. When you're choosing a size, choose your high bust measurement so that you get the best fit around your arms and neck, and then adjust everything else accordingly. Take account of ease in both the pattern design and your personal preference. So if you want to make it big around the waist, make it big around the waist. Find a fitting method that suits you. So you can either try the tissue fitting method, making a toile and using a toile method. That's useful for seeing how fabric behaves, because if you make a tissue fitting, you've got to make it a pretty close fitting to account for how a fabric sits right against your skin. So beware of that. So try a tissue fit, try a toile fit, see which one you like. You could just start off gently with grading some sizes, grading from one size to another, or that slash method that I showed you, where you cut along the place indicated on a pattern and slash the pattern open to allow more room. Don't forget, one change will create another change, but also little changes make a big difference. Thank you very much for watching. Do take a look at some of our other fitting tutorials and some of the measuring tools and accessories that are on Minerva's website for altering patterns.